Graham Bell, who invented the telephone, was actually trying to break the silence of the deaf. He failed to do this, but with the telephone, which gained a new feature every day, it enabled people who were miles away from each other to hear each other. Graham Bell's mother was congenitally deaf. His grandfather and father devoted years to the hearing impaired. In particular, his father tried to develop ways of teaching the deaf to speak even if they could not hear. After his two brothers died of tuberculosis, his father immigrated to Canada for the health of his only remaining son. After his father's death, Graham Bell went to the United States, striving to promote and disseminate his work. First to Ontario, then to Bostonsettled in. He worked here for a while at a school that trains language teachers for the hearing impaired. Then he set up his own school. Bell, whose fame spread in a short time, was called to Oxford University as a guest teacher. He read the book of the German Hermann von Helmholtz on the physiology of hearing, which he received in England. He concentrated on the idea that the sound of music could be transmitted through a wire. Meanwhile, other scientists were also working on these issues. Even years ago, Antonio Meucci had made such a device, but he could not get a patent. Returning from England, Bell was appointed professor of human voice physiology at Boston University. She embarked on putting her theoretical knowledge into practice with technical support and making devices for the deaf to enable them to hear. Thomas Watson. He started working with an electrical engineer named when financial support was needed to carry out his work. Attorney Gardner Green Hubbard gave him a helping hand. Bell and Watson discovered in 1875 that sound travels over a wire. However, the sound was incomprehensible. On February 14, 1876, Bell and Gray applied separately to obtain a telephone patent. Bell was granted the patent he requested on March 7, 1876. While Bell, who received his patent number 174.465, continued his experiments in the workshop, acid was poured on his trousers from the battery he used to power the phone. Called Watson for help. Mr. Watson. Come here. I want to see you, Mr. Watson. Come here. I want to see you. Bell unwittingly made the first telephone call on March 10, 1876, while calling his assistant for help. Watson heard Bell's voice over the phone. This invention, which coincided with the 100th anniversary of the USA, won him many awards at the 100 Years exhibition. Bell married Mabel, a member of the Hubbard family, a year later, for whom he received financial and moral support to carry out his scientific studies. His wife had been deaf since he was 4 years old. He fell deeply in love with Mabel, whom he knew as a Bell student and later married. Despite his growing reputation, he never ignored his wife or the deaf. In a letter he wrote to his wife, he wrote, "Your wife will always think about the deaf and their problems, no matter how rich she is." Most of his works, which are overshadowed by his outstanding inventions today, were on the subject of hearing impairment. He managed to record the voices that his deaf mother and wife could not hear. Alexander Graham Bell, who still works for the deaf, spent the money he earned from the gramophone for the Hearing Impaired Foundation. The French government awarded him an honorary award and a monetary award for his service to humanity. He used the money to establish the Volta Institute for the Deaf in Washington. In order to develop his first handheld phone, Bell tried to overcome technical problems while fighting a legal battle against Gray, who was suing him. The phone was able to get out of the workshop in 4 years. Tainer, who helped Bell in 1880, tried the device they called the radiophone. Climbing on top of a school, Tainer called Bell, whom he could see from afar, "Mr. Bell. Mr. Bell, if you can hear me, please come to the window and shake your hat." When Bell shook his hat, the phone was now crawling after birth. 8 years later, the state of Connecticut became the city with the first telephone network. Until recent years, the telephone was operated by switchboards and civil servants, as in Turkey. After a while, the tradition of female civil servants working instead of male civil servants in power plants began. The first female switchboard officer was Emma Nutt, who started working in Boston. The magnetotelephone conversations, which are the subject of laughter in some black and white films, tended to become automatic in 1899 with the contribution of someone named Alman B. Stauger. Oddly enough, Stauger was the undertaker, not the telephone man. His opponent's wife worked for the telephone company. This officer tied those who called Stauger for funeral arrangements to his wife. Stauger, who rolled up his sleeves to find a solution in the face of this difficult situation, succeeded in making the automatic switchboard. The public nicknamed the new phone the Gerler SS phone. It was in a form unlike today's phones. It had 3 keys representing the ones, tens, hundreds digits. The number to be connected was obtained by pressing the keys as much as the value of the number in the dialed number. It also caused confusion, as the caller was often surprised at how many times he pressed the key. The solution to this was soon found. In a short time, telephone poles and cable lines covered the streets of New York like a spider web. A telephone pole in the streets that had become impassable carried 50 crossed boards holding cables. The telephone began to enter daily life in different forms. In an advertisement given to the newspapers published in those years, the phone was introduced as follows: chat. It's much more comfortable with word of mouth on the phone. Bell opened the first long-distance telephone line connecting New York to San Francisco in 1915. Against him was Watson, his assistant. Despite all these years, Bell has not forgotten the first day. "Watson, I want you. Come here," he said to Watson. A fierce war broke out between hotels that wanted to attract customers by using the phone's facilities. Hotels started to listen to the sound they received through the telephone line, Tatavon, which connects to famous music, theater, opera and concert halls, to their customers sitting in their lobbies. It has spread to homes and businesses. Although Graham Bell is in the memories as the finder of the phone, there were also works that his name did not stand out. One of them was his directorship in the National Geographic magazine, which was watched by the whole world with great interest. The telephone probe, which was used for the first time in determining the location of the bullets in the body of U.S. President Garfield, who was attacked and seriously injured 120 years ago, was used in the development of the diagnosis with X-rays by Röntgen. He realized projects for sea and air transportation. A writer who penned the developments regarding the telephone in 1893 expressed his observation as follows: "After a while, humanity will be able to see the artists and singers that we can hear now."